Have you ever wondered how much rent you can get from your Section 8 tenant? Well, in this video, I am going to talk about how to set that rental amount. I will be answering a few questions. Can a landlord charge higher rent for tenants that get Section 8? How does a Section 8 office determine the rental amounts? I'm going to tell you a little story about how I kind of got myself in trouble changing the amount from the amount in my ad. I'm going to talk to you about what to do if you don't agree with the amount that Section 8 has, and then I've got my hot tip at the end of how I get the maximum amount of rent from Section 8 tenants. So who am I to tell you all this? Be sure you watch that intro and let's get started. Coming to you today from Eastern Market, which is in Detroit. I just wanted you to see, a lot of people don't know what Detroit's like. We have a very great, thriving art community, and we find this graffiti all over Detroit. Like behind me is factories, there's a house over there, there's apartments, there's an office building kind of diagonal there behind me. But we have this huge art community, and we have so much graffiti art. I'm in front of a garage door right now. And I'm going to make each part of this video in front of a different piece of graffiti in Detroit. When you come to Detroit, we do offer tours for our investors. If you're planning on buying a house in Detroit, we can give you a tour of what we do, but there are tours for just all the Detroit graffiti because it's really that cool. My husband and I, we buy houses in Detroit, we renovate them, we sell them to investors all over the country and all over the world, and our investors enjoy about a 12 to 14% return on investment here in Detroit. So the question is, can you charge a higher amount of rent for Section 8 tenants? The answer is yes and no. So I've heard people in Atlanta charge a lot higher than what we do here in Detroit. And I was told in Detroit from the different Section 8 directors that we really aren't supposed to charge higher rent. It has to be market rent. So whatever rental amount I list my property for should be the same amount that I am renting a house to a Section 8 tenant for. Not to say that's what I do, because sometimes I've seen somebody come in with a voucher and I'm like, you mean I could get a lot more rent for this house than what I had it listed for? And I do take several things into consideration if I am going to do that, if I'm going to charge a little bit more. For one, I have to be able to prove myself. There's trucks everywhere. Can I find other houses in that area that rented for the same amount that I am asking of my Section 8 tenant? I want to be sure about that. Now for me in Detroit, that's really tough because my houses are better than everyone else's in the area. They're newly renovated, they've got new roofs, flooring, furnace, windows. So a lot of times I don't have any competition, but I want to be able to justify my price amount before I do anything like that. I recommend that you join your local real estate investors association. They're all over the country. Talk to the other landlords there, find out the difference in how much rent they're getting. Another truck. Find out how much rent they are getting for their properties compared to what they're charging their non-Section 8 tenants, if there seems to be like an overall standard for where they are. Now, if you're a landlord in another city, I would love if you would comment. How is it in your city? Can you charge more? Do you get in trouble for charging more? How does it work for you? I want to hear. So Detroit used to have a lot more houses in it than it does now. You can tell, like, this used to be a neighborhood at one point, and all the houses have been torn down. Now, I don't buy in a neighborhood like this. I buy in a neighborhood that's slated to be kept. But what's interesting, there's these buildings behind me that are new and modern and great, and all the rest of the houses here are gone except this one, which is now like made into a graffiti artist little pad. It looks like somebody lives here. But this is what Detroit is like. So if you're ever interested in coming to Detroit, you got to come see this. Sorry for the interruption. I'm going to get right back to it. I'm going to find a new location because I'm afraid these people are going to come home or something. How do the Section 8 offices determine how much rent that a tenant, like how much can you charge? How much is the tenant allowed? Click below to get to my link of the fair market rents, and HUD puts that out. I was so surprised when I saw that. The prices are actually a lot higher than I ever charge, but to me that's the max amount I can ever charge. So I make sure no matter what's going on, I never have it over that amount. But the second factor is what the PHAs determine themselves. So they have their own guidelines. For instance, they go by what the fair market rent is according to the website gosection8.com. I made a video all about that here, about how to advertise right here. If you need to understand more about how Section 8 works at all, be sure you go to this video, Section 8 for Dummies. The other thing that they do is they have a determining factor with how many bedrooms a tenant can have. So if they are only allowed 2 bedrooms, that affects how much rent they're allowed to. So I do have a story time, and it doesn't make me look very good, but I'll share it with you because it's a great learning experience. It was for me anyway. I did not take my own advice that I made in this video here of how to do a background check for a Section 8 tenant, because this would have never happened if I had gone to her home and visited to see how she lived. But I had this applicant and she had a really good voucher. I think I was renting the house. I was renting the house for like $825, but her voucher amount, I knew I could get something like $900. And so I said to her, well, you know, Section 8 pays your entire rental amount. Do you mind if I just put $875 on this RAFTA, which is the form? I'm going to make a video. Be sure you're subscribed so you get these videos when they come out, but all about all the paperwork that we have to do. So the RAFTA is the form that you fill in that says what the rental amount is. And she was kind of hesitant, which was my first red flag, but I was desperate for the extra rent, and desperate people do desperate things, right? And I really wanted the owner to get the best ROI possible is what I was thinking. So she moved into the house and things went from bad to worse. It turned out she was quite the slummy tenant, and I didn't really like having her. She didn't have a wastebasket, and she would put all her trash right in the basement and like in paper bags, and then she complained to us that she had rodents. So like, go figure. So we kind of tried to get rid of her, wrote up lease violations, probably sent her a notice of eviction or something. She got mad and she said, I'm telling Section 8 on you because I saved a screenshot of your ad that said $825 and you put $875 on my voucher. And I kept trying to explain to her, it doesn't affect you because they pay the full rental amount. I don't like renting to people where they pay the full amount, because if they don't do anything else to show that they have ambition, they don't have money to buy things like waste baskets, you know? So like sometimes if they're on the full rent, but I know that they do hair, or that I know they have some other person living there that's gonna help pay it and isn't just a floater type in and out boyfriend, I might consider it, but otherwise I prefer it that they work. Well, nothing became of it, but it was a warning sign to me to be careful when I do that, because I really need to back up what I say. So let's say like my houses typically rent for $825, and that's kind of the upper end because the rest of the houses in the neighborhood aren't as good. They're really like $800 houses. But let's say I did put the $825 on the RAFTA. It's possible, no matter how much good homework I can do, which I made a video about how to do all that. When they call, I try to figure out what their voucher will really cover. It's not always perfect, and sometimes it doesn't work out. But it saves me from showing houses to people that really could never qualify anyway. Section 8 will write to me and say, sorry, your $825 isn't going to work. Her voucher will only do $801. They always have some weird number. Well, in that case, I always dispute it. And in Michigan, there's the Michigan State Housing Development Authority has their own dispute forms that you can go online and find. Anybody in any state can find it, but it gives you a good idea of what kind of information that they need for a dispute. Basically, it's the same information that's in your RAFTA. How many bedrooms, bathrooms, square feet, who's paying for what, who's supplying which appliances, that sort of thing. But so I fill out the dispute form, but I always write my own paragraph on there, even though there's no space for this, and I tell them why my house is for sure worth what I think it is. Besides the dispute form, you have to have, like I said earlier, you have to have 3 other properties, and they can't be subsidized, so they can't be Section 8 ones, because everybody charges more for Section 8, but you have to have 3 other properties that you can use on the dispute that rented for that much money. And it's kind of silly because the dispute form has you fill out about the other properties, like you know what that landlord rented them for, like you know what the final agreement was, but they seem to do okay with just the Zillow ads, and that's always worked for me. But when I was saying that the PHAs have their own standards of how they determine the rental amount, in the Detroit area, there's one housing commission that does not accept disputes. And the director of that housing commission, I said to her, I don't agree, because in Detroit, it's street by street, block by block. How do you know what the rental rate is on that block? How about that house I just showed? That's the only one on the whole block. Now, seriously, how are they going to know what an average rent is for that house with all the cool paint and, I don't know, like that is in this area when there are no other rentals like it? For me, there's no other rentals like mine. You can't say that a block over, the house that's renting for $600 must bring mine down to like $650, because that's not fair, especially in Detroit. I disputed it with her, and she just held firm to her beliefs that no way, no how does she offer or accept a dispute. So you see, I don't have any graffiti behind me now. I am home. Something happened in Detroit. If you saw where I last was, I kept working my way. I was in the front of that building, and then I worked around the side of that building, and then I went to the very back part because I had this really cool graffiti, and there's my dog Annie. It had some sign that said like, show Detroit love, and I was standing in front of it, and I filmed my super hot tip, which I still want to share with you. But after I filmed that super hot tip, here's a clip of what happened. So I go to leave where I'm at, and I'm locked in. I don't know. Gotta figure this out. So you might wonder, how did I get out? I had a moment of panic, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm in someone's driveway. I'm in someone's parking lot, and they had locked me in. I didn't know what to do. And so finally I stood there for a little while, and then some people came out of the building, and they were loading a vehicle out there, and there were a few people, and I yelled, hello, hello. And a woman came over. She's like, what? And I said, I'm locked in here. And she burst out laughing so hard, and she yelled to the other people, what'd you lock her in for? And I said, she had to run and get keys and unlock this padlock. And I said, was it like, were they trying to be funny? Because it is funny. And I said, I guess I was trespassing. I'm so sorry. And she was just laughing and laughing. And she said, no, the guy that locked you in, he's just a little thick in the head. He was in a car accident. He just didn't know what he was doing. So Detroit's friendly. I shouldn't have done that. I did trespass. But the super hot tip that I want to share with you, when I rent to somebody who has Section 8, and the rent is just not as much as I wish it were, I have to wait a year for the renewal of their HAP contract before I can raise the rent. But actually, that's not even accurate. I have to wait 9 months, because in 9 months is when I have to start the process, so that in a year it can get renewed at a higher rental rate. And now that you have that tip about the market rents, which I'm connecting in the information below that HUD puts out, they do a new one every year. You can look at that and make sure you never go higher than that. But I take some things into consideration before I go and raise the rent. Can this tenant afford it if I raise the rent? I really don't want a house poor tenant like that one I just described that couldn't even afford a wastebasket. I try to look at the whole situation of a person before I decide if I'm raising the rent. And it's not just the situation of the tenant, it's like the owner of the house or myself, or did taxes go up, or did my costs go up, or were they more difficult tenant? Maybe I just want them to move. I did make a video on how to get rid of Section 8 tenants that you want to move. That's a method you could do, is just raise the rent. So when you submit that, surprisingly, Section 8 is pretty good about raising it right back. Sometimes they will make you do that comparable market analysis where you send the 3 forms, but not usually. If you want to learn more about Section 8, I should have like around 20 videos by the time I'm done right here. If you want to know more about investing in Detroit, right here, I'm going to cover my face with my subscription, and I don't know, I'll put something else in this corner down here. Thanks again for watching, and I'm so glad I got out of that parking lot. Oops.